Bitcoin. It's a word you hear everywhere, right? You see the crazy price swings on the news, you hear people talking about it, but what was it actually supposed to be? Seriously, let's forget all the hype and the noise for a minute. We're going to go straight to the source and unpack the original, pretty radical idea behind it all. This sentence, right here, this is from the very beginning of the 2008 Bitcoin white paper, and it is the key to everything. This was the mission statement. The goal wasn't to create some wild speculative asset. Nope, it was to build a type of money for the internet that works just like cash in your hand. You give it to someone, and that's it. No bank, no credit card company, no middleman. So to really get why that idea was so groundbreaking, we have to kind of rewind the clock to 2008. We need to look at the fundamental problem with digital money, a problem that its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, was totally obsessed with solving. I mean, think about it for a second. Every single time you buy something online, you're not just paying the person you're buying from. Your money has to go through a whole chain of companies, a bank, a credit card network, maybe a payment processor like PayPal. Why? Why can't we just send digital money directly from me to you?
Well, it's because the whole system is built on what's called a trust-based model. And it works, most of the time. But it's got these built-in problems. The biggest one is that transactions can be reversed. And because of that, you need these middlemen to sort out disputes, which adds costs and, of course, creates opportunities for fraud. Satoshi's big idea was to build a system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. A system where transactions are basically irreversible, which protects sellers from fraud and gets rid of that expensive middleman.
Okay, so the problem was clear. We're all stuck relying on these trusted third parties to move money around online. The solution that Satoshi proposed was, well, it was incredibly elegant, a little complex, and it was going to change everything. And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the technical challenge. It's called double spending. Think about it. With a physical dollar, you can't spend it twice, right? Once you give it to someone, it's gone. But with digital money, what stops someone from sending a file representing a dollar to one person and then sending that same exact file to someone else? A bank solves this because they keep the one true ledger. But if you get rid of the bank, you need a whole new way to stop this from happening.
And this was the first part of Satoshi's brilliant answer, the blockchain. Instead of a private ledger hidden away inside a bank, what if we had a public one, a giant shared digital notebook that everyone can see and verify for themselves? Every batch of transactions gets put into a block, and each new block is cryptographically chained to the last one, creating this unbreakable shared history of who owns what.
But wait a minute. If everyone has a copy of this public notebook, who gets to add the next page? Who decides which transactions are valid? That's where proof of work comes in. You can think of it like a massive continuous lottery. Computers all over the world are racing to solve a really hard math problem. The first one to solve it gets the right to add the next block of transactions to the chain. And because it costs real-world resources, tons of processing power and electricity, it makes it incredibly expensive to cheat the system and secures the entire network. It's a way to get everyone to agree without having to trust anyone. So when you put all these pieces together, you get this really elegant, decentralized system that just works. It's pretty cool. A new transaction is broadcast to all the computers or nodes. They gather them up into a new block and start racing to find that proof of work. When one of them wins, it broadcasts its new block out. All the other nodes check it to make sure it's valid, and if it is, they add it to their chain and immediately start working on the next block. There's no boss, no central server, it just runs.
But here's where the story takes a turn. As Bitcoin moved from being this theoretical idea in a paper to a real-world system with real value, it started to change. And with that change came this huge debate, a kind of identity crisis about what Bitcoin actually is and what it's for. And this confusion isn't just among regular people. It goes all the way to the top. I mean, just look at this. You've got the US Treasury calling it a currency. The CFTC, which regulates futures, says it's a commodity like gold or oil. The IRS just treats it as property, an asset you pay taxes on. And China basically calls it an investment. If the world's biggest financial authorities can't even agree on what to call the thing, no wonder the rest of us are confused. A huge reason for this identity crisis is just how wildly its price swings. I mean, for something to work as everyday money, it needs to be pretty stable, right? But as you can see here, Bitcoin has been about 7 times more volatile than gold, and even more than that compared to the stock market. How can you price a cup of coffee in something that might be worth 10% more or 10% less by the time you're done drinking it?
And that kind of volatility has led to some really, really harsh criticism from some very smart people. Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, flat out called it a bubble. He argued it doesn't really serve any useful purpose for society and that it should probably just be outlawed. And that's a view you hear a lot in mainstream economics.
And that skepticism isn't just in academia. You've got Warren Buffett, maybe the most famous investor on the planet, who famously called it a mirage. And then he topped that by calling it rat poison squared. So you can see there's this deep, fundamental disagreement between the old guard of finance and this new crypto world.
Okay, so beyond all the philosophical debates about what Bitcoin is or should be, a very real, very practical problem started to show up as more people started using it. If Bitcoin was ever going to be that peer-to-peer electronic cash, it needed to be fast. And, well, it wasn't at all.
This number is just kind of mind-blowing when you first see it. On average, the entire global Bitcoin network can only process about 7 transactions per second. That's it, 7, for the whole world. Now, to put that into perspective, let's look at the Visa network. In that very same second, Visa is handling around 24,000 transactions. It's not even a close comparison. This massive gap is what people call the scalability problem, and it's the single biggest reason you can't really use Bitcoin to, buy a sandwich.
So, how in the world do you fix a problem that big? Well, one of the most promising solutions is something called the Lightning Network. The easiest way to think about it is like an express lane built on top of the main Bitcoin highway. The idea is to take all the small, everyday transactions off that slow main blockchain and process them instantly on this new second layer. And if it works the way it's designed to, the benefits are just huge. We're talking about transactions that settle in milliseconds, not minutes. Costs so low you could send fractions of a penny. Even better privacy, and, in theory, almost unlimited throughput. This is the technology that a lot of people are betting on to finally make Satoshi's original vision of peer-to-peer cash a reality. So, we've gone on this whole journey, right? From a simple, elegant idea in a 9-page white paper to this global phenomenon that's now facing a huge identity crisis and the massive technical challenge. Where does all of this leave Bitcoin today? At the end of the day, it really comes back to this fundamental split in what people think it should be. Is the goal still that original vision from Satoshi, a fast, cheap, peer-to-peer cash for the internet? Or has Bitcoin evolved into something totally different, a slow but incredibly secure global settlement layer, something more like a digital gold that you use to store large amounts of value, not to buy coffee? The community itself is still fighting over this question. And that's really the big question I want to leave you with. After all this, what do you think Bitcoin is? Is it a failed experiment in creating a new kind of currency? Is it just a brand new asset class like stocks or real estate that's still finding its place in the world? Or is it something more? Is it the messy, volatile, but maybe necessary first draft of a completely new kind of financial system? The final answer? Well, it's still being written.